Xavier, that's my dog Max. The love of my life, actually, so I like to share that picture. But just a little bit about me. I've been working in leadership development, coaching space for about 30 years. And I love helping people resolve conflict. Conflict, it sort of feels like a burning building, and we want to run away. But if we can learn to run into the burning building, we find out that it's not really on fire anyway. So I have some materials for you, handout, and I do have a card. I just haven't handed them out yet for time purposes. We wanted to get started. I'll give you a card if you'd like to have it in your back pocket whenever you find someone that you want to resolve a conflict with. You can just pull it out and you're ready to go. But today, in your handout, I'm going to say everything that's in the handout. But if you're a person who wants to take notes, there's a little space on page 6, a scratch pad. But everything I'm going to say is in your handout. You can read it later if this process seems something interesting for you to use. And when we talk about decision making, negotiating, conflict resolution, what comes up for you? What do you think about? Or yay? Run away, yeah. Well, there's different kinds of resolving conflict, negotiation, and decision making. And just to give you the high level differences, autocratic, what is that? Called my way or the highway. The boss makes all the decisions. No collaboration, no conversation. The next one is consultative, where the boss still makes the decision, but says, give me your input, and I'll make a decision, I'll consider it and make a decision by Tuesday. And then we have democracy, which works really well. It's 50% plus 1. So then we potentially have 49% of the people who are not happy with the decision. So there has to be, sometimes life is stranger than fiction. However, sometimes there needs to be a better method for resolving conflict. And what I'm going to share with you is called collaborative conflict resolution. It's also known as interest-based negotiation. And I talk kind of fast, so I'm going to try to slow myself down. But I worked with a company for 6 years, and I taught all kinds of things for 6 years, and they thought I was saying inner space negotiation the whole time. And somebody told me, it's interest-based? Yes, I talk fast, so I will try to modulate my speed. But resolve is a process I've come up with that I use with my clients. It's based on Fisher and Urey's work, getting to yes. But it's a 7-step process for collaborative negotiation. And it shifts from winning to co-creating solutions. And we're faced with tough problems. The world is complex, changing. We need to find a way to connect, solve problems in an iterative way. And this process can lay the foundation for making smaller decisions in the beginning or resolving smaller conflicts into bigger and bigger. It builds trust and collaboration with this process. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, but it really does help provide the framework for how to engage in a full collaborative conflict resolution process. Now, to walk through it one step at a time, the R is just, are you willing to resolve this? Do you want to talk about this? Sometimes, there is a choice, but are you willing to resolve this challenge with me? The second thing is establish a shared understanding of the issue. Oftentimes, we come in to solve a problem, but we all have different ideas what the problem is. So this is called contracting. We have to agree, this is what we're going to solve today. And sometimes what happens is over time, as we're working it through, other things pop up. And so we have to have ongoing communication to say, okay, we started talking about this. Now we're on to this. Do we want to recontract and shift our energy or put this in the parking lot? We're not negating it, we're not forgetting it, but we're just consciously traveling on the journey together. We have to be very conscious when it strays from the path. Does that make sense? Yeah, all right. And then separating interest from positions. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but our positions can end a conversation. Our interests can really start a dialogue. In our interests lies agreement. In our positions can lead to conflict. For example, I'll talk about that in a second. The O is open up with curiosity, ditch the assumptions. If you were in the class I just did a minute ago, we talked about how we think we know what other people are thinking, what they're going to do, but it's just a story, it's just a prediction. So we don't necessarily know, so we have to find a way to check it out. And then we have to leverage collective thinking. This is brainstorming. And when we're kind of figuring out ideas together, we have to have like a no holds barred rule. No idea is criticized. Everything is just thrown out there, and we're trying to navigate. We analyze them after we put every crazy idea on the table. And then we vision a shared solution. This is where we shape the ideas, and we begin to see, which ones are really actionable. And when we're starting to shape the ideas, what we're doing is we're comparing them against our interests. And does this outcome, this decision we're making, meet most of our interests of all the stakeholders? And then finally, the final step that often gets forgotten is when we execute on the agreement, we have to have clear action steps and compliance agreements. People in this process are like, so, yay, we have a deal, we have an agreement, but we solved the problem, we made a decision. And then they don't say who's going to do what by when, and if you don't do it, what happens? Be very clear on that. That's often left on the table. So today we're going to focus on separating interests from positions and leveraging collective thinking. I'm going to share a process with you that even if you don't use anything else I share with you today, this process is called a collective build. It's useful for problem solving and getting, sort of capturing the collective capacity of the group. When we're resolving a conflict, what we always have to do is have as many stakeholders that the decision impacts in the room as possible. Oftentimes we make decisions for people and they affect them, but we haven't considered it. And sometimes we might notice as we're having a negotiation or a decision-making process, we go, oh my gosh, marketing should be there. Or, our vendor, we should have them at the table. Or I work with a college, maybe we should have some student representation in this meeting. And if they aren't there and you can't get them there, we call that the 13th fairy. Someone has to pretend to be them and speak on their behalf the best you can. It's not a perfect solution. So that's where we're going to focus today. The first is focusing on interests, not positions. So a position is what people say they want. You need to stay until 4 o'clock. I need to leave at 3:30. So we can argue over the position of time, 3:30 and 4 o'clock. Kind of ends the discussion, right? But if we go a little deeper into interests, we can say, why do you need me here until 4 o'clock? Well, we're getting a delivery that needs to be signed for. Why do you need to leave at 3:30? Well, my spouse is out of town, I'm going to pick up the kids from school. So we have more to work with when we go behind the position and look at interests. Does that make sense? It's our interests, our position is what we want, our interest is how we got there. The more interest we can get out on the table, the better the final decision can be. And positions are solutions, interests define the problem, positions can clash, but we can find agreement in our interests. And I love this metaphor of an orange. And 2 kids are fighting over the last orange on the table. Dad comes in, cuts the orange in half, gives each half the orange and solves the problem, right? Perfect solution. Equally get half the orange, you're like, no. What's a better solution? Yeah, why do you want the orange? Because one kid peels the orange, throws the peel away, eats the orange. The other one peels the orange, throws the orange away, and wants the peel because they want to make a cake. And they say, what is your interest? Then there would be more for everyone. We work on an assumption of a fixed problem. So that's interests and positions. Now, those of you who are just in my session before this, I have you won't know the answer to this one, I don't think, but we assume we know what other people are thinking, and that is called prediction. Our brain is wired to predict, to keep us safe. And sometimes we do this thing called prediction error. We made a mistake. I thought you were going to do this, or I thought you wanted that, and that's a mistake, and that's where we can learn. So I'm going to show you this picture, and I want you to tell me what you see. Anyone, like your brain right now is, your brain is saying, what is this most like? Not what is this like. It's going through every experience you've had, and it's trying to say, what is this most like, not what it's like. And this is kind of what it's like in a negotiation or conflict resolution. We think we know what it's like, but when we add more color, more dimension to the conversation, we gather more information, a clearer picture can emerge. So that's why it's so important to gather as many interests as possible and have that dialogue and invest time in it, have as many people in the room as possible that the decision affects. Because we add more color. Now you can never unsee the snake. It's impossible. Well, I'm going to say it's impossible. So, just like I say, we see it different, and we see different things. This gives us the unique opportunity to create something new. And collaborative conflict resolution is designed to create something that you can collectively get behind that you can't do alone. That you need to depend on each other to action out. And that's why it's collaborative, and that's how it builds trust. So this is the process that I'm most excited to share with you today. It's how do we leverage collective thinking for creative solutions. We need to always invest time in brainstorming, like wild ideas, just put them on a board. But this process called a collective build is one of the best ways I have found to help teams gather the collective capacity from the room, to have everyone contribute to the solution and facilitating the best outcomes. And what a collective build is, you start with what's called a seed sentence. And I have a whole separate write-up on how to do this when you try to apply it at work or at home. It's called a seed sentence. You start with a problem. And I'm going to give you a seed sentence that I have to say, I got a little help here from my friend. Finding a sentence that might be generic enough for this group, useful, who knows, we'll see how it works. But I've started with this, you start with a seed sentence, and then what I want everyone to do is to take a minute in your handout, page 7 in your handout, and just take a minute and think about one action we can take to strengthen trust between tech providers and clients is. Just answer that question for purposes of the exercise, see what you can come up with. 2 or 3 thoughts. Seeing how it works with this process. It's more understanding the process more than having a definitive answer. So after you've planted the seed sentence, you give everyone an opportunity to write their own answer. That's what's so important, is people do their own thinking first, so they're not influenced by anyone else in the room. And then you find the quietest person in the room, which is a contest here. Just kidding. The quietest person in the group that you're working with. And you ask them, you know, what is your number one thing that you put down? What's the number one action that you wrote down that you think we should take? So anyone just volunteer something for me.
Own up to problems early.
Own up to problems early. Okay. Just for the record, spelling does never count on a flip chart. It doesn't count. Hold on 1 second. So what you do is you've got the first one up here and you say, does anyone have anything like this? So does anyone in the room have anything like this? This looks to accountability. Does anyone have anything like, go ahead.
Establish a strong interpersonal relationship with your account rep.
Strong interpersonal relationship with your account rep. Is that a new idea or does it tie to this one? ties, okay. Sure. With your- Does anyone have anything else like this to add to this? So I got this isn't a real group that's gonna solve this, but what you need to do is make sure everyone that has something to contribute, that you build it out. So you have all the angles, all the color to it. Does that make sense? Like all the dimensionality, like the color of the snake. You build it out, and then you say, okay, is this what feels done? And then you say, start another one, and you say, does anyone have anything completely different? Set expectations. Okay, set expectations. Does anyone have anything like that? Go ahead. Deliver the results. Does anyone have anything similar to add? No? Go ahead.
Communicate transparently.
Communicate transparently. So you keep building it out, and I'm pretty certain we're not going to find a solution to this here today. That's not the point. The point is understanding how the exercise works. You finish this one, and you say, "Does anyone have anything different?" Go ahead.
I thought to bring them together to a conference or a meeting.
Bring together to a conference. So gather in person. Understand? Yeah. Okay.
There's one earlier about the personal relationship.
It could be.
Right there.
That could support this one.
Yeah.
It can support this one. And what you'll find when you build them out, you then take, so the collective build is about making them as robust as we can. For example, I used this exercise about 6 weeks ago with a company I work with in California. I was doing a time check. And they had the authority in their department to decide how they were going to do a return to work. Hybrid, all return, all work from home. You can imagine the different opinions. And the leader said, I will stay in this process and I will follow whatever the group agrees to. That's a huge risk on the part of the leader, because his thing was, I want everyone in the office 5 days a week. That was what he came in with. And as we worked through this process, all the steps of negotiation, and brainstormed wacky ideas, like one guy said, well, if I have to come to work, then I want a daycare at work. Okay, let's put it down. Who knows, you know? I want, you know, a car allowance, because I moved away when COVID hit. We didn't criticize the ideas, we just got them all down. And then we built them out, and then we did what's called adopt-mocracy. Has anyone heard of adopt-mocracy? You give everyone 5 sticky dots. It's pretty simple. Although I did say democracy, you could have 49% of the people not agreeing with the decision, but you give everyone 5 votes, and you have your flip charts out, and you have people post. They can put all 5 on one, they can divide one, whatever they want. But the idea is, we're deciding collectively what is the most urgent. But before we choose, this is what I meant to show you, is we have to shape them. And when we shape them, we want to look at what serves collective interest by turning ideas into clear, adaptable actions. We have to go back to the interests and say, does this meet most of our interests? It's not going to meet them all, but is this like robust? It's not like we're just picking one action. And then we want to let go of options that don't hold up in a complex shifting environment. Like, for example, the manager said, I cannot build a daycare at the office. So we thought, let that go. We can put it up on the wish list. So we kind of weeded them out, and then prioritizing them, shaping them or prioritizing, that's when we do the democracy, we can vote. And then once we see it all together, we then say, does this still feel right? Does this one still feel right, like the first thing that we should act on? We're not getting rid of the others. This is how you can create transformational KPIs collectively. Because you've all contributed collectively, you've all decided what's first, and then you do the hard part, who does what next? Who's accountable for what, and you begin to build it up. Does that make sense? Does this process resonate at all with you as a tool that you may use, possibly? Yeah, and when we put it all together, I already said this is like executing on the agreement. We have to really hold ourselves and each other accountable. There has to be a lot of psychological safety in the group to say, hey Bob, you said you were going to have this in on Tuesday. It's the close of business, where is it? And if you know you're not going to get something in on time, you can renegotiate the agreement. I said I was going to have this done on Tuesday, this got in the way, can I have it on Thursday, or else you just follow through with if I don't get it done. But the communication is key. The communication is key to everything that we do. So putting this whole process together, the goal isn't just to win, it's to move forward together. And again, we're requesting, are you willing to solve this relationship? Are you willing to have this conversation? We have to establish that shared understanding. We're contracting. This is what we're talking about today. We're not going to go off to Tahiti in our conversation. We might have to recontract and say, okay, let's bring it back, or we go in this direction. But everyone has to agree. You want to separate interest from positions. This is fundamental to this type of problem solving. And the more open you are about your interests, the better the agreement can be. I can see if you have external stakeholders involved in this conversation, it might feel like you're exposing yourself a little bit, but the more trust you can build around that process, the better the solutions will be. If you can collectively, it's kind of like this conference, it's like a collaborative experience of all kinds of people. It's like this energy you have here, that's the energy you want here. And then open with curiosity, ditch the assumptions. Remember, you can't ever unsee the snake, but you gotta share the information to see a fuller picture. Leverage collective thinking, and I think the collective build exercise is one of the best exercises I've come across for this kind of process. Simple to facilitate. You don't have to be a facilitator, you can just do it. The one tip is if you're going to use the tool, is if you're writing on the board, write down exactly what the person says, don't filter it. Because it gives a subtext message that what I'm saying doesn't fully count if you filter it. And then you're visioning shared solutions and executing on the agreement. So that's what I have for you today. It was quick, it was fast, but I wonder if anyone has any questions. Go ahead, yes.
A lot of your places, and also from the previous workshop.
Yeah.
So from the previous workshop and today in the documentation, you have this prediction and perception.
Yeah.
Now, how about perspective? Is it within the context of as it affects everything?
Tell me more. I like that word.
Well, I guess from what I've been also reading and following through, so from perception point of view, is something that we observe and react to, which may or may not be working.
Right.
But perspective maybe, I think, sort of, it's related to a position, I guess, and an observation of from a certain vantage point of
Yep.
the role in the situation and all of that negotiation process. So I was wondering if something that it's a perspective on the view of the organization or a common goal is something that you consider as a tool.
I feel like I should almost add that into the conversation because perspective matters, right? I think that's a good add-on. It can come from experience, and it can come from being brand new to the problem. And when we see something for the first time, we see things other people don't see. And sometimes when we see some things a lot, we miss parts, but we also have the wisdom. So you said perspective, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I think I might steal it. Actually, to be honest, really.
Because at some point I was using maybe these words interchangeably, but then I realized they aren't.
Perception is, that's a good distinction. Perception and perspective. Perception is how we make sense of it. Perspective maybe is a broader term. I'm going to think about that. I never played that. So thanks. Anybody else have any questions or comments? I think we're 52 late.
Any last questions, guys?
So, thank you for hanging out with me for this 32 minutes. I appreciated it. Enjoy the prizes. I think it's prizes next. And I really appreciate your attention. At the end of the day,